Welcome to the Walled Garden Podcast, the flagship podcast of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society. Here we tend to the gardens of our minds, one meaningful conversation at a time. To learn more, go to thewalledgarden.com. But for now, enjoy this episode. Hey friends, Simon here, and welcome back to the Walled Garden Podcast. Let me just start this episode by pointing out the glaringly obvious. Of course, it's been way too long since we last spoke. I'm so sorry for the massive divide. We're going to cover a lot of the reasons in today's episode, and thank you so much for your patience over the past year when we really haven't been speaking into this space. But we're back. And we're so excited for what is to come. And today's episode is really just a conversation between myself and our good friend Rocco Jarman. We're going to cover a lot of the reasons why we took this massive break in the Walled Garden. And we also really want to cover a lot of the very exciting things that have been happening between then and now that really do relate to the Walled Garden and everything that we want to be doing going forward. Now, I'm going to give a massive spoiler right here at the start of the episode. So if you just want to listen to this catch up with Rocco and I and get all the good details in that episode, just skip ahead maybe a minute or so. But there's your fair warning. I just want to give you the massive details of the episode so that you know what's going on in case you'd like to participate in what we have coming up. So Here's the big reveal, right? I'm actually sitting right now in a space that is called the Sanctuary Studio for the Arts and Humanities. Now, this is a space that I set up last September. It's in Santa Ana, California. It's a beautiful studio for podcasting, for performances, for all teaching. I teach all of my private music students in here. And coming up in September, particularly from the 5th through to the 7th of September this year, we are having a massive first year anniversary celebration. Now, why does this relate to the Walled Garden? So, our good guest on the show today, Rocco Jarman, is coming all the way from Perth, Australia, to here, Santa Ana, California, to deliver a keynote speech and to deliver a workshop to artists in the area to celebrate this first year anniversary. We've also got Sharon LaBelle, none other than our very favorite Sharon LaBelle, co-founder of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society and good friend of the show. She's coming down from San Francisco to celebrate with us as well, to give a talk and do some meditation sessions. This is going to be such a beautiful weekend, and if you're local or if you'd like to come out to this, I know it's last minute, but everything has just been happening so quickly lately. You are invited, of course. We are going to find a way that we can live stream some of these events and actually invite you to watch that online. But if you'd like to participate in person, then the place that you want to go to right now is thesanctuarystudio.org/anniversary. That's thesanctuarystudio.org/anniversary. This is going to be a very special weekend, and really it's going to be a test weekend for what I want to do in this studio that very much relates to the Walled Garden, which is to host philosophical weekends where we fly in fantastic, profound philosophers and give them a chance to deliver a talk, a workshop, to participate in this community that I've created here over the last year, and then to obviously create some fantastic materials that we can then deliver on the podcast. So that's all coming up. I'm not going to spoil any more, and I just want to reiterate thank you so much for hanging in there with us over the past year. I'm so excited for what is to come, especially now that we have the foundation of this beautiful space here in California through which to host all of the things that we want to do in the Walled Garden going forward. And without any further ado, I want to present to you again our good friend of the show, very close mentor of mine, and somebody who is very special to the Walled Garden, Rocco Jarman. All right, friends, welcome back to the Walled Garden podcast. Oh my gosh, after quite a hiatus,
Yes.
it's probably coming on a year now. And this is going to be a very, very interesting episode because we're going to be bringing all of you into the great adventures that have been happening the past year. But hey, I've got my good friend Rocco here. You guys know Rocco. How are you, Rocco?
Hey, everyone. Yes, hiatus is just about the word, man. I've got to tell you what the etymology of that is. But yeah, we're back. We're back.
Please let us start there with the etymology of hiatus.
Yeah, it's a fun one. The root word comes from the same word as gape,
Okay.
which is hare in Latin, to gape, and it's this yawning void that you sometimes have to allow between things in order for them to die, to compost, to convalesce, to become themselves, like the sort of the gap of life, the yawning of life that happens between the caterpillar and the butterfly. You know, that's how I see it. Hiatus. Yes. You could just say gape and then kind of awkwardly leave it at that. But yeah.
Yeah, and I was even thinking about, I put this in a message to some of our members on the website as well, that it's very interesting that one of the last episodes, or some of the last episodes we had on the podcast last year, were about this idea of apocalypse.
Wow.
And, it being what I learned from people, well, from you, was, and correct me if I'm remembering this wrong, but apocalypse has a lot to do with, actually, it's not fully a death. It's a death in order for a rebirth to take place, and something new will emerge, right?
Yeah,
You can expand on that.
It's actually from a Greek word, apocalyptine, apocalypsis, which means to reveal or disclose or make apparent. And it's about a veil dropping, like our senses of illusion, our facades, our the skin and the structure of our previous selves, again, like that caterpillar, so that dissolution can happen, so that whatever is emerging can become pronounced and can become revealed. And it's conflated actually with end times, and it's conflated with like Armageddon kind of a thing. Those two words get mixed up in our head, and the one is presaging or talking about a significant ending, but endings and beginnings are sort of co-present all the time. And I think as you move through sort of one state or phase or era of reality, everything that we think is firm and true and we can count on, and or that we are even in ourselves, like the impermanence of that becomes so obvious, and then you kind of have to step away because you can't really keep inhabiting that old identity and still move forward. And it's in that sort of gap in between the two where there is a destruction, I suppose, happening, and there is an arrival happening at the same time. Yeah, which is like spot on about what's happening and what we're talking about today. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so much has emerged since our last episodes, and oh man, I just feel like a completely different person.
You are, man.
And hopefully, the Walled Garden is becoming not an entirely different organization, but there's a refocusing going on.
Yeah.
And part of that death and rebirth, for me at least, from my perspective, was I realized, we're trying to do too many things. We're trying to over-engineer too many things,
Be too many things.
Be too many things, offer too many things, and we couldn't do any of them.
No,
I mean, not effectively, not in the way that we would have hoped, based on our, on our founding mission and just the beautiful goodwill invested by everybody who has participated in any way in, whether in, helping with the podcast or being guests or being mentors or just, our friends coming and, joining the website and being a part of everything that we're doing. there's so much beauty in this organization, and man, it just got to a stage where I just felt, whoa, I kind of felt myself stepping away,
Yeah.
and necessarily, I wish I had have been more communicative in my
Yeah.
stepping away, and more upfront about, like, listen, I'm trying to build a foundation over here so that something can be real and really emerge in the world,
Yeah.
based on what we want to
Yeah.
create. But
Sometimes that persona that we need to be able to manage that transition, and that includes speaking into the world and managing the expectation of others. Sometimes that persona only is something that arrives after these kind of changes. So thankfully, once you learn that kind of lesson and that necessity, it's nothing that happens again, because of course you'll go, and the organization will, as we all will, go through different kinds of changes. But I think just acknowledging and recognizing that, I think that's the key. That question, if I had my time again, what would I do differently? And you definitely would have proceeded and given yourself permission for that. But as you say, probably managing our expectations outwardly would have been and that's something that you and I are talking in our private sessions as well. It's completely normal. I don't know if you want to pick that up, but it's completely okay to not be available, to not be present, to not be who you were yesterday. Or deliver on the expectations that even you helped create sometimes.
yeah,
But when we step into roles of cultural leadership or relationship leadership or social leadership, then suddenly it comes with that expectation, or that duty, I think. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I definitely, yeah, this is definitely something that I've been really trying to learn, and it seems to be just a way that I do things. Man, I take on way too much, and throw way too many expectations out there, and then I wake up one morning and I'm like, oh gosh, look at this pile of promises, pile of
Yeah.
and
Man.
but what I do want to say is that even while we've been away, always, like every day, the walled garden has been on my mind, because what I have built during that time, and even a little bit while we were podcasting, I was building a foundation for what was to come. But between now and our last episode, I've this, just been working tirelessly to build something that actually is very much tied to our initial mission of what we want to do as an organization. And it's always been on my mind that there was going to come a time when come back to the walled garden, clean things up a little bit, get refocused, and
Yes.
re-enter the world with a much clearer vision of what we want to do, but more importantly, like how we want to get there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And who we want to be, or who we don't want to be while we do it.
yeah,
So, excuse me, one thing I'm thinking about while you're saying this is, you always let me know, certainly, and I think you mentioned it enough times to enough people, that even though you needed to step away from the walled garden for a moment, there's this beautiful saying by Khalil Gibran. He says, the mountain to the climber is clearer when he stands in the valley. Sometimes you can't see how you're going to climb the mountain when you're right at the rock face. Sometimes you have to retreat back to the resting, the distance, the that perspective of not being so close to something, to put it down so that you can pick it up better. Because when you do that, even with our kid, sometimes even when she needs us, we have to put her down so that you can kind of pick her up right, in a way, almost. And what you were always doing was, with the Sanctuary Studio, which we really should talk about, is like a footprint or a nest or a wellspring, a beachhead from which the walled garden can actually live in the world, because even though it's fully intended to be an online community as well, we've entered an age in this world where there is a real desire that's speaking through our projects and our intentionalities, that things want to be real in the world. They want to be perhaps not always brick and mortar, but they want to stand in place and be connected with place somehow, somewhere, somehow. And it's a tall order for us in this age of, let's be honest, it's a kind of digital dystopia. It really is an unwell situation. It's more important than ever to be able to connect with something that you know is rooted in place, is real in the world, you know. Yeah. And I think that's what you've managed. That's what you've managed to do. Yeah, I think that's what you've managed to do. Now, Simon, I just want to go back a second. We have this habit, I expect, of we have so many one-on-one conversations, and we have a shorthand between us, and we have a momentum and inertia of conversation. And I just want to perhaps say something now between you and I that we can even maybe lift out and plug in the beginning of this conversation to be a real welcome, a real invitation, a real maybe a mea culpa, a real this is what I would have done, thanks for bearing with me kind of thing. I don't know if you'd like to jump in that with me, and let me begin perhaps by saying that so much, God, so much of what we do with philosophy and the project of it, excuse me, pardon me, so much of that project is our aim to inhabit a more virtuous life in some way. And we become very preoccupied with what we ought to have done and what we ought not to have done and what the right thing is, etc. And we have all these, but what we're missing completely, instead of picking the locks of all the mistakes we made, of all the shoulds and shouldn't have dones, we forget this very simple truth that is just a fact for everything and everyone, which is that there's this very stark difference between ideal self and the self that we're able to marshal on the day. Ideal self is the one that chases after amazing ideas and like butterflies, you know, and captures them all. And the next firefly comes along and the next one and the next one. And gosh, we do not ever want to let that beautiful side of us die. It's in the very heart of that poem of mine, Close Your Eyes. It says, dream the chrysalis dream, which is again about caterpillars and butterflies. Dream the chrysalis dream that the ancient child in you may awaken. Dream the chrysalis dream that the ancient child in you may awaken. That ancient child is, of course, the puer eternus, this eternal heart of originality that we actually are, and we should always connect with, especially as philosophers, especially as artists, especially as creatives, especially now in this time in the world when we so badly need to be able to dream a new dream. We need to free the Imagineers to do such things, but we also need to ground it, you know, as we said before, give it a beachfront to live. But we forget that it's ideal self that makes all the commitments and shouldn't be making commitments. Ideal self should be dreaming dreams. Another version of us should be making commitments, because we make all these amazing commitments and we write checks that our self on the day, a week from now, a month from now, can't actually cash. And that's so human. And if we just realize that, half of our agonizing relationship that we have with philosophy changes completely, because we're not so worried about fixing our virtues. We just realize how completely human we are. And it's not like we're one undifferentiated single self. You know, we are these multitudes and these confusions and tensions inside of us. So I don't know if you want to take that and sort of say something that we perhaps should have said at the beginning, and hello, welcome, friends, or, you know.
Uh,
Give them the real framing of why we're bouncing back and what the time is now and what they can expect.
oh,
And,
okay.
you know,
Yeah, well, now you're talking about what's coming, like what has happened since then.
I think all of it, you know, like
Yeah.
the segue. So we went off the air. There was no announcement. We're suddenly back, and
Yeah.
you know, people are tuning in. And what is this?
You
know?
want a recap of what's happened
Yes.
since we last
Yes.
spoke.
Since
That's what
last
you want.
season. Yes.
Yeah, since
Leave
last
on a
season.
cliffhanger,
You know,
yes.
hey, podcast audience. You know, how you doing? It's been a while. Here's what happened since I last talked to you. Yeah, actually, gosh, it's the most beautiful thing I could have ever imagined could have happened in the past year. I'm so happy and grateful for the opportunities that have come and for the support that I've had from people around me, because essentially what I was building up to, even as we were podcasting and releasing podcasts, I was building up to setting up my own studio, private studio. You know, I've been doing a lot of private music teaching here in California since I moved here in 2022, and you know, doing a lot of different work over here, and really just getting myself set up. And then there came a point where the organization that I was working with, I felt very strongly that I needed to part ways, because there was something really beautiful that needed to happen. An opportunity came, and I found just the right space within which to set up this studio, and it's called the Sanctuary Studio for the Arts and Humanities. And so we've set up here in downtown Santa Ana, California, right in the Artists Village. A beautiful, very historic town, very rich artistically, creatively, a very big history of artistry in this town, and just a fantastic community of people down here. And so every week in this studio, just to give you an idea of the sorts of things we're doing, well, we've set it up as a podcasting studio. It's a private teaching space. I see about 30 to 35 students each week on trombone and trumpet and singing and piano and all these different instruments. And it's also become a space for performances. And so we host these really world-class performances in here every single week with jazz artists and classical musicians, and we've got Indian folk music coming up. We've got all sorts of genres in here. And so the whole idea behind this studio was I wanted to set up a space that would be a sanctuary for creatives and artists and people who are interested in exploring and expressing themselves through the arts and humanities, not least of which I wanted it to be a place where we, as the Walled Garden, could have a venue, a place to start doing really cool things, whether it is using it as a podcasting studio or hosting a philosophical talk series or weekends like we're going to talk about very shortly.
Just an anchor in the world.
It's an anchor in the world. And the reason I say I'm incredibly grateful is because this organization and myself as a creative, we've just been so well received with open arms in the community here, and my students and their families, and the people who are coming out to our concerts, and people are seeing what I'm trying to build here, and they are really connecting in a beautiful and profound way with the message, which is that the arts and humanities are not this kind of stale thing that we study from the past. These are a gateway for you having a much more profound, meaningful, grounded, real experience in this world. And when
immersive and
when we
experiential and visceral and somatic and
exactly. And so, you know, people get it, and parents get it when they bring their kids here for lessons.
they're getting it, because I think your message is actually just beginning to unfold, but they're getting it. They're picking up what you're putting down.
That's it.
They're picking
That's
up
it.
what you're putting down.
So
Have you watched Dead Poets Society recently?
I have not.
Gosh,
I need to watch it.
For those of you folks who have heard it, it's so topical at the moment. And you have to watch it, Simon. There is a scene in the beginning where the key character played by Robin Williams is teaching these boys at a very stiff Ivy League kind of very prim and proper school, and it's all about decorum and tradition, and he's teaching them English, and they've got this enormous tome that they open, and it's about poetry, and the first thing is this professor giving this stale, leaden, austere kind of introduction to poetry, and he makes the kids tear it out. He makes them tear it out because of course, it's supposed to be something that makes you feel something. Yeah. The whole human experience, it is the teaching of the language by which we have that conversation, Yeah, that's it.
And to that point, I'd like to give people a bit of an idea of what the experience of this space is like, right? Because I set it up. The whole idea behind the Sanctuary Studio is, and this is something that I eventually want to become multiple locations. But when people walk into this space, they know it's my space because I've poured my entire soul into this whole place. I laid down every floorboard, I moved everything in here. I picked everything very carefully. I've got my whole library in here. But when you walk into the space, first thing to know, it's in a 100-year-old building. It just turned 100 this year. And for me, that was very important because the space, you have to feel inspired and connected in a space. And for me personally, I feel like a massive issue of the past 50 years is just the hideous nature of most architecture. But, excuse me. So it's this beautiful 100-year-old building. You come up the stairs and you enter the room, and the first thing you're going to see is a 130-year-old piano. And then you're going to see this beautiful library and instruments hanging on the walls and traditional instruments like the Irish borin drum. And you're going to see local art from artists in our area who have actually given their art to be displayed on the walls. There's a record player, a typewriter. You feel like you're entering a different space. You're going to walk into another room.
It's liminal in a way.
What do you mean by that?
Liminal. It's an in-between space. It's a portal into a different mindset. It's almost like a diorama of the world that you're trying to create. It's an icon, a lens to walk through, live through, experience through, to get a message, an invitation that you are pushing out in the world through the Sanctuary Studio, through your own work in the world, through your identity as a man, a teacher, a student, a musician, a cultural leader, a philosopher, and also this space that you're trying to bring people into, this idea that you're trying to spread or infect people with, which is that we need a walled garden, we need a sense of a sanctuary, we need a way to hold the line against what is dystopian and crumbling and dysfunctional and the worst part of us.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's certainly the experience that people are having, and I set it up in such a way that the space is almost equally important to what we do in here, right? It has to be this way. It has to exude soul and life, and everything was picked for a reason. Everything has a purpose in here. Mm-hmm. And the biggest compliment that I get when people enter this space, whether they're coming for lessons or for the concert series or anything, is that they just walk in and they say, wow. Because everywhere you look, there's something delightful. There's something that has history to it. Like I'm looking at a guitar that I just bought, which is probably 50 or 60 years old, and I bought it from a pawn shop just around the corner, to think of the life that that instrument has had and the places it's gone, the music that it's been used to play with. And so for me, I wanted to create a space where, you know, since I had built up a reputation as a music teacher, and I'm doing quite well with my private lessons, and we don't even think of it as teaching. I've brought on more teachers now, which is excellent teachers from our local area who are very, very high level performers. And we all agree on one thing: is that it's not teaching that we're doing; it's mentorship. It's mentorship, because we're, you know, even going
fostering
back to
culture.
Exactly, we're fostering culture. We're trying to. Well, I was even thinking what you were saying, just in terms of the dystopia that is emerging at the moment. You know, I love working with all sorts of people, but there's always this, the underlying thing that we're trying to do, musically speaking, but this goes to mentorship in general, is we're just trying to help people to have a really meaningful experience. And so I always say to my students when they come in here, I don't care if you want to become like the next, you know, high level performer, or if this is just something that is an outlet for you to be able to explore something that's going to give you a deeper experience. So I have retired people who come in here and they're picking up their instrument for the first time since they left high school. And I also have like young kids in here, and you start to see the difficulty of being like a young kid in today's world, and the attention span, and the, you know, anxiety, all of the difficulties of, and I'm able to have these kinds of conversations with the kids and with the parents, and it's meaningful to bring them into a space where everything is set up to inspire, to be peaceful, to be a space for learning, to be a space for embodying this of going on an adventure, you know. And so sometimes I'll be teaching a kid and another kid's waiting in the other room and they're playing on the typewriter, and it's like, whoa, what is this, you know? Or they're like looking at the records or the books, and so it's a delightful place. And the funny thing is that when we started the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, in our founding documents, we knew that we always wanted to get to a stage where we could open up a community space where it would be a space where people could engage in
But this was the way to do it.
And this was the way to do it. And I just, the opportunity came, and I said, I have to take this, because this is, and it was one of those moments, you've had these plenty of times before. The universe just speaks, right? And it's just like, wow, this is absolutely the space. And the funny thing about this building, Rocco, I think I mentioned this to you, about a year and a half before I found this space, I had come to this very building to look for a space to see if it would be right for maybe something that I'd want to do that would be like this. The space that I looked at was about the third of the one that I'm in now. And there was no way that I could afford it a year and a half before I actually set it up, right?
Yeah.
But as luck would have it, when I was financially ready to do something like this, I saw that this building was leasing again, and I came, and this corner space, so this is another thing, it's very well lit, it's beautiful in here, it's got these 100-year-old windows with the glass that's kind of like murky when you see through it. Everything was just coming together, and I said, like, this is exactly where I need to be. The community is right, the building is right, the space in the building is right, the community in the building itself is right. There's creatives in here, everybody's just awesome. And so it was just one of those things where I had to, you know, just stop what I was doing, and like, this is what I'm doing now. I've got to set this
the
up.
immortal words of Vanilla Ice, you had to stop, collaborate, and listen. Yes.
So we're here. And
yes.
I can't believe this is our first podcast recorded out of this space, since it's we're almost celebrating the first birthday. Yeah.
And there's so many themes being pulled together and tied together here. So I suppose the only other thing that I would want to mention to the listening audience and the community and their sense of expectation which I'll get to in a minute. And it's about that missing voice in the world that I thought we had a duty to carry, and a lamp to light, and a shelter to offer, and encouragement and sensibility and voice and presence. Just that certainty that we were there, and there was a place to come to, and we have not been that. We have not been that. I think we, in our ambition and in our youthful folly, we created a lot of confusion, but I think that confusion wasn't just something we were creating. I think we were responding to it. There was a confusion in the world, an urgency, a desperation to be seen and to heard and to do things. And it was kind of, we were the playthings of the algorithm, yeah? And I think the hiatus, for better or worse, has allowed us to reconnect with our own signal, perhaps, with the purity of that intentionality and that charter and so on. But I think it does remain to be acknowledged that if I was on the receiving end, I would be feeling something.
Yeah.
Some mixture of confused, what is this now? Oh, here we go again. And I can only apologize for that, or acknowledge that, or say that that's a real feeling too, and commit to some kind of pledge here that whatever happens next, the quality of communication and expectation management will change.
Yeah.
If there's any form of cultural or philosophical leadership that needs to happen, the mandate there is, as I've said to you in different arenas of our life, just the one who cares most about a thing is the one who is most mindful of the duties of leadership. They don't have to be the best or the greatest leader themselves. They just have to realize which boxes need ticking, which things need done and taken care of. And one of those things is expectation management, So I think that's a thing. But to reflect back on all the things that you were saying, I'm much more curious about the kind of things that you didn't think to share or admit. And it's the enormous vulnerability and courage that you had to give yourself permission to leave a stable employment, to leap into the unknown, throw your hat over the fence. There must have been so many, we call them pants-shitting moments, where you think, oh, what the fuck have I done? Am I going to pull this off, And I think that's where the magic really, really happens, because that's where you discover who you are. Yeah. That's where you discover who you are. And what we want to do in the walled garden is make room for people who are trying to determine their intellectual identity, their social identity, their philosophical, their leadership identity through the medium or through the lens of philosophy, because philosophy is just really a way for us to understand how other people think, so that we can maybe decide for ourselves how we want to think and see the world and see ourselves and all the rest of it. And then similarly with musicians, young and old, and you've said to me so many times, this isn't just about musicians. If you just want to reconnect with that spirit of creativity, curiosity, that self-permission, that freedom, that empowerment that comes through fanning the imagination back into life. That whole project is about self-permission. That whole project is about vulnerability and throwing yourself into something to see who it is that you are, or what will come through, and being sometimes troubled or delighted or uncertain about that process, and what you told me, maybe you can share, because I think there's a lot of philosophical poignancy and wisdom, a lot of reflection also in your own life, in that when I followed your journey, because you were at a music studio before teaching, and you were trying that whole time, for the listeners, you were trying that whole time to breathe the spirit into the place, and there was forces, just the way humans are in any organizations, that were more reticent, more conservative, slightly more fearful, perhaps would be a way of saying it, controlling, not out of any particular poor character trait or malevolence, just it's in our natures, yeah. And you didn't have the freedom and the flow to help the way you wanted to. And I think it was precisely that frustration, right, that pushed you, kicked you out of the nest of your own comfort, because it kept nagging at you, almost pulling you apart. We get pulled apart by these tensions of opposites, yeah. And the one thing I tracked was that the Grasshoppers, that little project that you ran with the youngsters, and how beautiful it was that the actual initiation was an initiatory arc for them. It was an initiatory arc for them into their own relationship with their instrument, their own relationship with music, their own relationship with collaboration, their own relationship with creativity. And the premise that you kept sharing with me is that there is no wrong note, there is no wrong thing. This is all play. This is all play. And that sounds academic until somebody's living the example, encouraging them, smiling, changing the vibe in the room, reminding them, until they eventually found a way to believe it and internalize that understanding that this is actually play. This is actually play.
Yeah.
And it was that kind of spirit that you rode out of that nest and into the unknown. And it was one of the first projects you reinitiated when you found your feet. And so that was actually the thread that you followed. That was the thread that drew you on and carried you into your future in a way that you want anybody that comes through the door to be carried into theirs. Yeah. To, as you say, rediscover your magic, And I think that's very telling. And I think there's a spirit of that which a project like the Walled Garden or a mission like the Walled Garden could take to heart, that in the end, this is all play. In the end, this is all play. You know, we shouldn't be taking ourselves ever so seriously, and we have to say the wrong things so we can learn how they sound. We have to discover our relationship with truth, our relationship with discomfort, our relationship with belief and understanding and wisdom and so on. Yeah. And I think that bears saying, you know, because I think it's a beautiful idea. I think it's a kind of, it's a something that came through you, and yet it also carried you and lived inside of you and is now living in other people. And it's the quintessential dream of an Imagineer, of a you know, the not the shadow side of the Pied Piper, but the other one, the one where, follow me, here's the music, find your own. Let's do it. Let's make a scene. Yeah. Let's make a scene. Yeah.
I want to add something to that as well, just for some extra context for the Grasshoppers and how it kind of started. Is I had this idea of, you know, what if you get a bunch of little brass musicians in a room and you say, okay, we're not going to learn by sheet music, which is so often what they do in schools and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a different approach. But with sheet music, you have to fit into a certain thing. Right? You have to be that thing. You have to sound like that. I said, no sheet music. It's just going to be a bunch of us brass musicians in a room, and somebody's going to start an idea. And then everybody's going to be listening. And it is going to be play. And you said that multiple times. It's play. The very important distinction that I would make is there's boundaries to play, right?
Yes.
Because you don't want to play with the kid who comes onto the playground and pushes you off. He's not allowed to play, right?
Yes.
And so really what I'm trying to instill when we do the Grasshoppers is the philosophy behind play that allows us kind of that Jordan Peterson idea of like it has to be a repeatable game, right? I have to play in a way that makes you want to play with me again.
Yes, I've got to trust the framework. Yeah,
Exactly. And so,
yeah.
and at the bottom of it is actually quite a beautiful message, because the thing that I kept on bringing these kids back to is, hey, listen, what's our major goal here? And they'd always say to me, it's to contribute meaningfully to the music that's being made. So you can't just come in when everybody's trying to get an idea going and play from the spirit of, I want to be heard, which so many young brass musicians do. Why do you pick trumpet other than to be loud and be heard, right? Like, so they'll just come in here and just start playing random notes and wow, loud and obnoxious, right? No, we don't want that kind of energy. We want you to be mindful, considerate. You can trust yourself that you're allowed to get in there and play the wrong notes, right? But because it's not the wrong note, you're just trying to find something that works. It's a team sport. It's a team sport, exactly. So you're allowed to get in there and play things that might sound weird, and maybe it goes in a weird direction, but all the while, as long as your ultimate goal is to try and contribute meaningfully, so that as a group, we're improvising something truly beautiful and cool. And I'm just thinking, exactly.
That's the spirit of harmony. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm thinking back to a couple of sessions ago, we had this great session where I showed them this piece from Charles Mingus, great jazz musician. And the piece is called Eat That Chicken. And man, it's such a crazy piece, because it's just all these musicians sitting around, and it sounds like they're in a bar or something, and someone's tinkling the piano, and they're just all singing, to be honest, almost like drunks. They're singing, eat that chicken, eat that chicken, eat that chicken, wow, right? And it's just, it's such a joyous piece, right? And I showed this to the Grasshoppers, and then I sat at the piano and I started playing the blues, right? And I said, I want that energy from all of you. I want that kind of playful, ecstatic energy. So go wild with your instruments. I don't care. They did connect with it. It's fun.
Right? How old are these kids now?
Oh, anywhere from like 8 up to 16.
Jesus. And so these the young ones are getting permission from the older ones, and the older ones are feeling a sense of duty to show a sense of example. And gosh, how they must be growing as people. Yeah.
And that's the idea, right? Because there's a direct correlation, or there's a direct line that can be drawn from I'm trying to contribute meaningfully to the music that's being made to I'm trying to contribute meaningfully to my community, or and in a playful way where I'm trying, I'm trying to find the right note,
same idea,
right? And so I said to them, give me that same energy. And so I'm tinkling the blues, and everybody's just playing these wild notes. And once we stopped, I said, hey, listen, after all of that play, did you all notice that you started to get a better idea of the notes that worked and the notes that maybe didn't? And all of them said, yeah, absolutely. So great, let's do it again, right? And we're just refining that skill. But this time we're doing it in the key of F, right? And this time we're going to B flat. Yes. And
playing
so
that too.
And it's such a beautiful thing, because kids, just more from like the music teaching side of things, which is really like a frontier that I'm trying to be an example in, because I think that kids need a lot more opportunity in their music education to be playful, to be free in their creativity.
Yeah.
That's how I learned so much of the time.
How else would they care about what they're doing, man?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially today, man, when like kids don't have that high of an attention span, like you've got to get them straight to the source really quickly. And so, I even like my approach in music teaching is not, hey, we're going to learn like all these fundamentals for 4 years, then you get to play what you want to play. I start with what's the music that you love? What do you want to play? Okay, well, let me teach you the fundamentals that are going to get you to playing that, right? So that you can have that joyous experience. And that's a journey. That's an adventure. Then you say, what do you want to do next? What else do you love? Yeah. And it's through pursuing what we love that the learning comes,
Guess what? That is the blueprint for how I teach self-actualization.
Yeah. It's all underlying philosophy.
And all that I'm doing with all of the Hermetics and all of the Kabbalah, all the ancient wisdom, is not to try peddle ancient wisdom. It's to extrapolate the maps and the sense making and the tools and the paradigms and the lenses by way we can look at the world, these framings that we can adopt that give us the context to better understand what it is we care for, who we are, how we play this instrument, how we play and inhabit this instrument, how we be the instrument, in all these fronts of our life, our personal development, our relationships and containers, and then our works and our callings. And it's the same philosophy. And what I'm hearing, and what everyone should be hearing here, is we're not talking about teaching music. We're talking about the mentorship of leadership, the philosophy of mentorship, the philosophy of leadership, the philosophy of self-actualization, entelikeia, and eudaimonia. It's back to that. It's back to that. And this is just a medium. And you could be doing that as a writer. You could be doing that as a mother or a father at home. You could be doing that a husband or a wife, or in anything, It's philosophy.
That's it.
If philosophy is not that, what is the point of it at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which brings us to this wonderful invitation back into the walled garden.
Yeah.
So maybe you can take us very quickly through the way it's changed, how it's simplified, and what experience people can expect in the interests of expectation management.
Yeah, definitely. So if you go to the website, you'll definitely see that it has been greatly simplified. There is, sorry, I'm getting over a cold, and so, all right, I'm back. There is, there's no option for membership now, is the first thing to say. And what we're really hoping to do is narrow our focus right down to where our major service that we're offering is the philosophical mentorship. That is the one thread that has always carried along since the founding of the organization. It's the major reason that we started the organization was mentorship.
Connect people with people.
Connect people with people. Exactly. And man, it essentially what we want to do is be, if you're somebody out there who really wants to be connected with somebody who can guide you on your own philosophical path, where, like Rocco said, we're moving towards a life of eudaimonia or greater a more profound experience in this world, this one life that we get, right?
The great so that, I call it, yes.
Yeah. We want to connect you with the right person. And so, we're still going to be finding our feet a little bit, but that is our major focus. That's where we want to go. And yeah, group mentorship will be great. We do want to offer online events.
There'll be talks.
And it'll all be around just connecting people with people, exploring profound ideas that can help us to have a rich experience in life. And on top of that, what is very exciting to me is that we do now have this space where we can start doing in-person events as well. And there's going to be an invitation forthcoming in this episode as well. I hope we'll get to talk about that a little bit. But that's really our narrow focus.
Being the host, you can do you can do whatever you like.
We're co-hosting this episode, man.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So that's what is to expect going forward. And like I said, we've been away for a long time, so there is going to be a little bit of that finding our feet, but this is the major focus for now.
Now there's a sort of dual focus happening in September. We were kind of flying both flags of these beautiful projects that you've initiated in the world. The Sanctuary Studio has its 1-year anniversary coming up, and you've got organized some festivities for that, and people can go to the sanctuarystudio.org.
Yeah.
To get across that.
Let's okay, so basically 2 weeks ago, it occurred to me that the 1 year birthday of the or anniversary of the studio is coming up very soon. And it's essentially September. September last year is when I signed the lease, started setting the space up. Took us a few months to get rolling, but for all intents and purposes, that is our birthday. And for the longest time, I've known that there has to be a moment when Rocco comes over, and Sharon as well. And Sharon's been going through it the past year. Weren't any details there, but she's coming out the other side ordeal, quite the ordeal. And so I can't believe it, but we've booked flights, accommodation. Both Rocco and Sharon are going to be here at the Sanctuary
Live in studio
for our birthday weekend. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate this organization, and also to do a road test for what we really want to do at the Walled Garden in this collaboration, which is, I would love it if every month we have a whole weekend where we fly in a profound philosopher from somewhere around the world, and they get to spend a few days here, go to a concert, give some talks themselves, record some podcasts. And that's essentially what we're going to be doing. And so let it be known that this is a complete open invitation. Now, I'm hoping that we're going to have a live stream option for Rocco's talk. I'll talk to Alex here, who's working with us on the podcasting, and he's a real problem solver. So he's going to help with the live streaming there as well. We'll give you more information once that comes. But I do want to put the invitation. Yeah, we've got 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks until the 7th. So I know that we're springing this on everybody, but if you have the time and the budget and want to fly here, or if you're local to the area and you've been listening for a few years, firstly, just go onto the sanctuarystudio.org and you can actually book time with me to come see the space. If you're local and you want to come down and check it out, I would love to meet you. But if you're going to be here on that first weekend in September, which is the 5th, 6th, and 7th of September, you really want to come down here. There's a few things that are happening. And I'll just let people know just the quick overview, bird's eye view of the weekend. Friday night is going to be mostly for my students, but the public is welcome to attend. We're having a little student recital, and Sharon's going to give a talk and perform on her fantastic hammer dulcimer. Saturday is going to be where the real action starts to get fully energized here in the studio, because the birthday weekend coincides with Santa Ana's first Saturday art walk. So the streets are abuzz, everybody's out there going into studios, making art, vendors, all this sort of stuff. So it's a fantastic Saturday event. But we're going to have a music and meditation in the studio, followed by Rocco's talk, keynote speech. And Rocco, I want you to talk more about what you're going to be doing on the weekend. After that, we're going to have an artist's full moon jam on the street, which is going to be fantastic. And then after that, I'm going to be performing with my quintet. And I know that a lot of you on the podcast I just haven't really welcomed you into that side of myself through the podcasting. But many of you will know that I'm a jazz musician, so I'll be having just some of the best musicians in Orange County coming in and joining the quintet for the evening. And then the following day, we're going to be having a workshop with Rocco. So, Rocco, I don't know if you want to maybe speak to your particular events on that weekend, but like I said, if you're in California and you've been listening for a while, or if you have the time and it's not too close, for you to book something and come on out, I'm putting out the strongest possible recommendation that you come down and hang out with us on this weekend. And I'm sorry for the late notice, but Rocco,
don't be sorry. This is what's happening, and it's
we're playing.
One of the things when you're dealing with adults that are trying to make room for their own eternal child, that creative sense inside of us, is things will happen as if by rumor. But
Yes.
but this time we're going to be sharing the rumor a bit more proactively. But Simon, look, man, I am absolutely honored to be able to come out. That unfortunately for me, my wife is supportive of letting me go for 10 days, because it's quite a trek from Perth, Western Australia. But I'm thrilled to be able to come over there and just be part of that with you and see this beautiful thing that you've created in the world, and endorse you as a man and as a burgeoning cultural leader and as someone who's had an incredible amount of vision and courage and stay with it, to make this happen. And if that's any indication, this is quite a big moment, because there is growth and expansion and connection and contagion around you in the best possible way. And you're starting a scene. You're giving off something. You're putting a message out there, and it's not just a message. It's a gift. You're being a gift in the world. You are being a gift in the world. And I am so honored to be part of that. So I want to come and pour some magic into that moment, and just also witness it, and be present.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Man,
on
so
the
grateful to you.
Saturday,
And
what's that, man?
it should also, since we're giving off good vibes to each other, it really should be said that so much of this would not be possible without the mentorship that you gave to me, Rocco, during those difficult times where I had to make like really complicated decisions. Do I leave this workplace? Do I not? Just do I dive in? I had to take on a significant loan to start this business, all of this stuff. And you talk
burdens,
about,
yeah.
my vulnerability and everything, but like, yes, but I know that so much would not have been possible if I didn't have a person like you to come to and say, like, listen, I'm in a really complex decision-making moment. What do I do? And this, to me, is the very heart-centered endorsement that I will carry forward in the walled garden of mentorship, philosophical mentorship as a service, because you want to know that when you come to a crossroads in your life where you have to make a decision and it's of this higher stake, you want to know that you can go to somebody who is not just going to tell you, yeah, you should do this or you should do. No, they're going to sit with you and listen to the complexity of the situation, and they're going to come from a place of love and caring and a bit of philosophical depth, and gosh,
Holding you to
so helpful, Rocco.
the standards as well,
Yeah, exactly.
accountabilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were facing some reputational damage, potentially some risk, reputational risk, let's say. That's a much better way of putting it. When reputation is such a big thing in what you were trying to do. So those things had to be handled with tact, but also decisively. Yeah, so if we can pass that magic on, that would be the gold prize,
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you want me to talk briefly about what I'm doing on those
Please,
2 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful, man. I can't wait for this.
So Simon has created a beautiful video, which you should take the trouble to go watch. If you go to the sanctuarystudio.org, I'm sure there's a link to it there.
It's right on the homepage.
It's this little video of Simon playing some music, talking, and just exploring the space while sharing the ethos, the spirit of the idea, the invitation, and this sense of calling that you have. All it comes through that in a very simple, very sort of non-prescriptive, easily digestible way, and it's about your belief that every one of us is some form of invitation in the world, is some form of gift as well, but that the world is also a gift to us. And if we can see the symmetry in those two things, and if we can inhabit that, the tension and the troubling questions and the uncertainties of that journey, that's how we reclaim our magic, but also bring magic into the world. And the world could definitely use with a bit of that kind of magic. There's that wonderful saying, quote by Harold Thurman: "Do not ask what the world needs. Ask yourself what brings you alive, and go and do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Yeah, and we wanna spread that vibe, And so the theme for the week that you set is reclaiming your magic, reclaiming your magic. And it's not just reclaiming your magic. There's this little silent proviso at the end, so that. Reclaim your magic so that you can be of service to your future self, so that you can have deeper, more rewarding relationships, so that you can live your calling, so that you can be a gift in the world, so that you can help heal the wounds, so that you can infect others with this beautiful idea and these life philosophies, so that you can leave a mark in this world that you would be proud of, one day when you're not here. And that part of reclaiming magic, I'll be coming over and sharing my work, which has always been wonderfully and beautifully difficult to define. And I used to be apologetic about that, but I've suddenly realized it's the most wonderful thing, because I operate at this intersection between esoterica and poetry and philosophy and archetypal psychology, this language that cuts across all of that, of metaphor and symbolism, and the language of the psyche, and a lot of the wisdoms that we need to inhabit and integrate inside of ourselves are not all high-minded. Sometimes they're the embodied wisdoms, the way that we connect with the world, the way that we connect with our bodies, the way that we connect with our experience. And of course, that's all the language of the psyche. So at this beautiful intersection, now we're exploring the idea of magic, and we're looking into a magic mirror. And the title of the talk is The Magic Frame. And it's about how we apprentice ourselves to our own craft and calling, how we apprentice ourselves to our own craft and calling. Now, that's the workshop, Simon.
That's the workshop. That's right.
Where is the talk? Because I've got that wrong.
Yeah, just on the events page there.
Ah, beautiful. So the talk, the topic of the talk, my apologies, on the Saturday is going to be through the magic mirror. This sort of story device, of being able to see a magical truth, or the fortune or the future, perhaps, through the magic mirror, reimagining the artist's role in the shaping and renewal of our culture, reimagining the artists, the creatives' role in the shaping and the renewal of culture. And there's an artist in all of us, if we could just let that dancer come alive, And so we'll be talking about the artistic journey as something that we can think of as sacred and transformative. We'll be talking about this idea of cultural stewardship that we've actually dropped throughout the whole episode today. How we honor traditions, how we create new ones, and how we strengthen them and help them evolve and help them set roots and cohere and belong to community and to place. And then I will, of course, be speaking about, whilst doing it, blending philosophy with poetry, with archetypes, with this invitation to discovering our own mythopoetic identity, and then the fertile ground of inspiration that makes us native to, again, So yeah, that's going to be what we're talking about. And I'd like to play with the idea of keynote. Key is a magical word in esoterica. It means what gives us access to something, but it's also this thing on a piano, a key that strikes a note with us, and to deliver a key note is almost it's at the heart of the symphony, at the heart of the intentionality, at the heart of the song. There's a key note. Like, are we're going to try this in the key of F, as you said before. This is the thing that sparks the frame in which all of that play can happen. And it's this seminal seeding moment as well. And in that, I want to draw a parallel towards people that we can actually replicate that formula in everything that we do, in all our interactions, in all our forms of disappearance and arrival, in our various arcs of transformation and change and trouble that we're going through, and the way that we're trying to find our door by which we can be more generous to ourselves, and then also be a gift in the world, and more generous to ourselves by receiving the gift that the world is to us as well. Even in this troubling moment, even in this time of great change. So, gosh, I certainly hope that is inspiring and intriguing for people, and I'd love to see you there on the day.
Yeah. And I'd like to add a couple of things here. Firstly, that if you're remotely interested in participating in this, I've actually set up a beautiful page for you on the sanctuarystudio.org that outlines everything that's going to be happening on this weekend. And I'm going to create a similar sort of thing on the walled garden so that everybody can see it on that website too. But for now, if you go to the sanctuarystudio.org/anniversary, that will be the quickest way for you to find out a lot more about what's happening on the weekend. Now, I also want to mention, you've heard Rocco talk a little bit about what the topic is and what's going to be explored. There is a lot of rich philosophical content there that will be of interest, I'm sure, to many of you, but you probably got the message that it is kind of aimed at a certain community. And when Rocco and I were talking about this, I kind of said to him, look, there's so many incredible artists who have come through this space, beautiful people learning in here, all, following their own creative path. I just really want you to come over here and impact that community, because what's growing out of the Sanctuary Studio is a kind of scene, a kind of movement of sorts. And I want this to grow, and it will grow through the community that's already developing. And this is actually my chance to also say hello to, any of the artists or people in this community who might be listening to the podcast now and listening into this episode. When I first came to America, I came with that classic Australian tall poppy syndrome, and I was very nervous about engaging in the artistic community over here because, Australia and Orange County and LA. I mean, like, come on, LA, Orange County. This is like the hub of the world for artistry. And I was quite nervous about it, but man, I just had the great fortune of getting in these circles where I'm just meeting the most beautiful people here in the arts community, and so welcoming, so wholesome, so wise, so rich spiritually and philosophically. And gosh, I feel like I've found what we found in the walled garden, the level of philosophical richness in that community, and the people I've had the great fortune of talking to through the podcast. I found the creative and artistic equivalent of that here in Orange County, and so I'm so grateful to have found my way in this community, and really bringing you over here, Rocco. I see it as a service to this community, and that the word's already getting around. People are getting excited, and no matter what happens, I know that an impact is going to come from this. And this is going to be the spark of an even greater direction that we're heading in here. So I'm so excited to have you here, Rocco. And like I said, people, go to that link, check out what's happening. And Sharon's coming. It's just the cherry on the cake.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
I can't believe it.
Two quick things, Simon. If people do go to the sanctuarystudio.org, it's actually quite an effort to find the anniversary page. You really need to make that more
obvious. You might not be seeing the things that have taken place because I need to refresh the cache.
May well be. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so there should be on the
Sure.
events
By the
page
time this
now.
goes to air, that'll
Yeah.
all be sexy. Okay, great. And
Yes.
just the second thing is, the talk is more for a wider audience, but there is also a workshop the next day for artists and creators who really want to deepen this line of inquiry, and begin a journey or deepen a journey of an apprenticeship to their own craft and calling. In other words, there's very specific tools and practices and framings and language and protocols that we can be taught, and we can practice them in our audience gigs, in our lead up to things, in all forms of our engagement with life and with our creative capacities. So that's also an invitation that exists here. But man, I think this is feeling like a healthy, natural close to me.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if there's a last parting word we want to give to the walled garden community. I suppose it's that the podcast will probably be a bit of more of a steady, or is intended at least to be a bit more of a steady feature from here on out.
Yeah.
And we'll, as you said, we'll be finding our feet. But engagement is going to be absolutely key, and we want to find ways of figuring out what people are sitting with, the troubling questions out in the world. What do we need to be talking about to be of service? We don't want to be deciding all of that ourselves. So we'd like to open that conversation, open that dialogue again in some way. So I think that's the kind of promise or the commitment we can make from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to say I'm so glad to be back, and hello everybody, and make yourself seen as well. Feel free to email us, and look, the website is there, and you can apply for mentorship. It's all functional, things like that. But yes, certainly, especially as the studio grows, this is another aspect of it that should probably be said as well, is it helps a lot that I'm finding my feet financially, right? And have built a business where I can actually survive off the fruits of the things that I love to do, right? And this is supporting me. And so from this point, what I'm really hoping is that as the Sanctuary Studio grows, so does the capacity of the Walled Garden to deliver the things that we really want to deliver. Because we've got a podcasting studio here, and I'm so grateful to Alex, who's sitting next to me, is helping with producing a lot of the audio from our concerts and everything. And now we're shifting gears into the podcast space. I need help, and I've always needed help through with everything that we're doing in the Walled Garden.
We need crew.
Yeah, so now I feel as though what's happening is we're building muscle, and it's only going to get better, hopefully. And I'm no longer approaching things in that way where I throw a whole bunch of like, this is what we're going to do. This is why I say we're still going to be finding our feet for a while, because at the end of the day, I want to make this repeatable. So, today we set up the podcasting space and everything like that, and there's going to be changes, and we're going to get better, just like what we're doing with the concert series. It's getting so much easier to run that and produce the video for that and everything that comes with running a concert series. So too will the podcast become easier to make high quality. And so we're going to get there. And for those of you who are still listening and with us and hanging out for this adventure, I think you've probably always seen that, this is not something that's going to stop. It's just sometimes we have to take a break, and now we're back, and we're going to try and do it better, and we're going to try and do it better again and again and again. So that's the plan anyway. And I do want to just reiterate, anyone who's in Orange counties or Southern California or just close by and you want to come and say hi, please go to thesanctuarystudio.org, book time with me, give me a call, whatever. Just, it'd be good to get to know you. And yeah, I'm very excited that this organization now, the Sanctuary, can be a space, a foundation upon which to build an even better more focused and a more real walled garden. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think we had a shocky prologue, but this is perhaps the beginning of chapter 1, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Rocco.
And gosh, I certainly hope we can see some of you in Santa Ana in a few weeks. Take care.